You are listening to the Small Town Big Arts podcast. I'm your host, Jeffrey Kirshner, the CEO of the Academy Center of the Arts in Lynchburg, Virginia. In my own work as an arts leader, I have found it difficult to access resources for arts organizations and artists serving smaller communities. On each episode, Small Town Big Arts sets out to drive conversations and provide inspiration for those serving smaller communities through the arts. If you like what you hear, please rate and review us and share with your friends and colleagues who are working to promote the arts in smaller communities across America. You can also learn more by visiting us at smalltownbigarts.com. Well, I'm very excited for this interview coming up because I have been a big fan of Bath County and the arts and culture environment that exists in this really special rural community in the mountains of Western Virginia. And recently, SMU Data Arts did a rural arts study, arts vibrancy study. And in the state of Virginia, our arts vibrant rural community that made the top communities that they found was Bath County. And so for quite some time, I've wanted to speak with some folks from Bath County to talk a little bit about the magic of this place and how they have managed to create an arts vibrant community. Some of the ways that SMU Data Arts measures this is through three different dimensions. One is art supply, meaning how much arts exist or provided in a community. Arts demand in dollars, how many people are interacting with the arts and contributing to the arts financially, and then government and public support as well in regards to this can be both from the county, it can be from the state in regards to the Virginia Commission for the Arts, but also private donations as well. So I'm very excited to welcome Lee Johnson, the board president of the Bath County Arts Association, and the newly appointed executive director, Sage Tangwe, who are going to talk to us a little bit today about Bath County Arts Association and Bath County itself. Y'all, thank you so much for joining me.
Oh, it's
Thanks
so great
for
to be
having
here.
us.
Yeah.
Well, just to get started, I think let's talk about the exciting new news. I mean, Bath County is a rural community, and you all are about to open a brick and mortar location, and you have hired a staff member. When I first looked at Bath County when the study came out, Bath County Arts Association was a volunteer-based organization. So this is a really exciting moment. So I think just to begin, Lee, why don't you tell us a little bit about bringing Sage on and what's happening, and then we'll hear a little bit from Sage about the Bear, the new brick and mortar location.
Well, Jeff, we have been thinking about this idea of being able to open a space for at least 2 years. It probably started germinating somewhere during COVID, when we took a year off from our art show. We've actually just celebrated our 60th anniversary. So we had our 60th show, and it was when we were coming out of COVID and ramping back up to do the art show, we decided to make a lot of changes, which were met with a little trepidation, to be honest. We launched the idea of having sponsors for the art show, which hadn't been done before. We wanted to make a lot of it automated, which also hadn't been done before. This was very analog, old school kind of art show, and it had worked wonderfully for 55 years. But we did all those things, and we had this amazing response, and we almost keeled over when on that first show after COVID, I think we had like almost 700 pieces of art, which was astounding to us. We were still in the Little Valley Elementary School then, and we were kind of divided up into lots of different classrooms and the cafeteria. The lighting was a little strange, and it was just, it had a wonderful homey feel. But we moved into the Bath County High School, into their gym. This is the third year that we've been there, and we're now boasting and crowing about 1,000 pieces of art that come to us in the beginning of July. And it's kind of tagging and cataloging and moving all of that art into the gym space and then hanging it and labeling it, putting it in a program, et cetera. And then the fun part comes when we can actually sell it. So all of this success and kind of new changes enabled us to, for an organization that was still, kind of operating on a shoestring budget, we were able to kind of dream this big dream of what would it look like. We had a wonderful visioning session that was led by 3 North 2 years ago. We brought kind of 20 people together from the community, partially from the board and outside people from the community, and also some potential donors for us. And we talked about this great idea, and we walked away with a 20,000 square foot building and about a $15 million price tag. And we went, wow, that's great. And then we went, oh no. And, we worked on that and we labored and scrutinized and were even probably tearful and wringing our hands. And we realized that probably the best way to do would be to start small
Hmm.
and do sort of an experiment and raise some seed money. And as
Very
we were,
smart.
it was, so as we were thinking about renting or buying the space in DTHS, I mean, everyone knows what that is, right? Downtown Hot Springs. We were looking at one space, and then we had someone pose the idea of using this other space that was kind of, it had been it was a restaurant, and there had been a fire, and they were renovating the building, and it was in a better location. It was right at the beginning of the street and kind of the crossroads in this real hub-like center right next to the Omni Homestead Resort, which is, a big
Yep.
draw, and a lot of people know that name, and they're good partners with us. Um, so our board had a couple of retreats over the last 6 months, and we decided to finally pull the trigger on the renting this space for taking a 2-year lease. We decided to hire a grant writer, which we've never really explored before either. And we
Mm.
decided to hire our executive director, Sage Tangway. So that came about in April, really. And
Oh, wow. Yeah.
had to quickly post the job. We had some feelers out. Everyone told me, you're not going to get any candidates. No one's going to want to come to Bath County. And the housing is especially difficult, et cetera. So we talked to our landlord, who said that he had all these apartments upstairs and that he would throw in one of the apartments for us if we needed that, kind of as an enticement for someone and an added incentive for our candidates. Wow. I mean, we had a huge response. I mean,
Yeah.
we probably had like 7 or 8 really qualified candidates. And Sage kind of came to us a little bit in the 11th hour, kind of. And instantly, we heard her name. She's a former Bath County resident. She had
Perfect.
kind of grown up with BCAA and went to Missoula, the Missoula Arts Theater thing that came to us during the summers. And
Yeah. Yeah. Missoula Children's Theater.
yes, Missoula Children's Theater. Thank you.
Yeah.
Um, and we started talking to Sage, and we quickly got her off the Zoom call and went, okay, yes, yes. And so it all just worked out. It was kind of like the perfect storm.
Yeah. So Sage, you're a
Yeah.
boomerang. So so one of the things that often comes up when we speak to small communities is that, there are outsiders and insiders, right? And you can be either one in a small community and be an arts delivery. You just have to know which one you are. It's a really important thing. Um, so you're from Bath County. This is really exciting. So tell me a little bit about what's in store, particularly with the brick and mortar space.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm super happy to be coming back. I had lived in Bath County as an adult, not just as a
Oh, wow. Okay.
growing up, for a few years when I was working for the local radio station, and honestly had just my husband and I have been trying to get back to Bath County since COVID. But it's a small town. There aren't tons of opportunities to come back all the time. So this was just an awesome chance to come back and work in the field of arts. So I am very excited to come back. We will be opening up the Bear on Labor Day weekend. Um, I'm sort of looking at this first, the rest of 2025 as a big time for experimentation.
Mm.
We're hoping to sort of try things out. Now, the BCAA has had a lot of really strong programming my entire life in Bath County.
Yeah.
There are things that have just happened every year since they started, like Missoula Children's Theater, like the art show, and as well as funding cycles for local events and other art projects. So all of that has been really strong. And I should also mention our scholarships. That's one of the reasons I
Oh, we'll
actually
definitely talk
received
about it. Yeah,
I
we'll definitely
received
talk about that.
funding to go study at UVA when I was a graduating high schooler, but there hasn't been the consistency that a physical space really provides. Everything every program had to be figured out and negotiated on its own terms. Where
Yeah.
is it going to be? How long is it going to last? And this new space really allows us to expand beyond that. So we're hoping to kind of create a mixture of speaker series, workshops, and eventually regular classes and class series that take up the space. And meanwhile, we'll be hanging art regularly, so there will always be an exhibition on the walls. And right now, we're just really trying to see how big of a baby step can we take.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, there's often conversations. I mean, it doesn't matter the size of community you're in. There's always conversations of scale and what is the right size to be for the community that you are. Bath County is interesting. I think just to talk about Bath County really quickly, and it was mentioned the Homestead Hot Springs was just
Right.
mentioned. So tell us also a little bit about Bath County for those who may not be familiar with Bath County, because I think as we talk about scale, what you guys are doing, where you've been, where you're going, I think some context will be important because obviously there are the residents of Bath County, but then there is also Bath County as a destination that you all are a part of. So tell us a little bit about that too.
Do you want me
Well,
to take that lead, or
I
do
was
you
going
want
to say, well, we are a really small county. We're only 4,500 people.
Mhm.
We're spread out. I can't imagine what the ratio of people per trees is, but it's pretty staggering.
We need that as like a new ratio for
Yeah.
rural locations.
Yes. But as you are intimating, we have residents who are there full time. And then because of the homestead is such a destination, there are a lot of kind of part-time residents. And that's kind of what occupies our real patron and donor base is the residents and the part-time residents. Then we have the whole sector of the visitors who come um, a lot who come to the hotel itself, the homestead, but then we have another handful of really terrific, inns and small B&Bs that people love to patronize.
Yeah. It's and I think one of the things that's really impressive about Bath County is that and you all correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think I am. I see very often that there are communities, like let's use like Jackson, Wyoming as an example, that is been designated as one of the more top arts vibrant. I think it is the top arts vibrant small city. So much of that is driven by tourism and then the arts organizations that exist there. Um, Not to discredit them, but they really are kind of feeding off of skiing
Mhm.
and hiking and all the things that are around it. Um, for you all, though, I wouldn't really make an argument. My sense is from the longevity of Bath County Arts Association, Garth Newell, others, that you all have really created an arts tourism industry there, in my opinion. I mean, I feel that that is a big part of the visitation there that happens regularly, are people that are coming to your festival. Is that a correct assumption?
Definitely. I
Yeah.
mean, the art show is a huge draw. We've got people, the hotel at the Omni participates with us. They market it for us, and then a couple of the other inns that do as well. And it really is, I mean, we get so many visitors who've never been to the art show before, much less Bath County, and they love it. They come back. I have
Yeah.
people who say to me all the time, "Gosh, I just love that art show you all put on."
So it becomes like retention. It's like people come, and so that's an interesting notion too, that when people do come, right, and then an added incentive to come back, right, is that they discover that there's this really rich culture that exists. So, in talking through this, one of the SMU data arts markers is art supply, which when you all talk about the amount of art that is moving through you all and art sales. I mean, we're talking about revenue being generated for artists, the value of that, all of that is really, really clear. The arts demand is there, the certainly, and this will be so I think Sage, as you're looking at this expansion and you're making these steps towards, supporting brick and mortar, a full-time staff role. Where do you see this arts demand going? How do you see your sort of place in that as it's moving forward?
Yeah, absolutely. So something I hear all the time from locals is just this desire to have more going on, right? There's always
Yes.
this, there's not,
Hmm.
why? And especially because, we're a rural area, but we're surrounded by other rural areas that for, I would say the past decade or two have seemed to have more going on in terms of community offerings, particularly in the arts and culture area. Now, that's not to say there isn't already stuff going on in Bath, but there's clearly a disconnect where, it doesn't feel like there's a centralized location or things pop up for a limited number of weeks or months and people really enjoy them while they're there, but it never kind of reaches capacity to kind of keep it going. So I definitely see that there's this obvious demand for social programming around art and people connecting around art,
Yeah.
just that
Yeah.
community building, because I mean, we have several really beautiful galleries in the county. We have the Garth Newell Music Center, which
Mhm.
provides chamber music and other musical programming. But in terms of actually having a space that is sort of a chameleon and changing shape to fit what is in demand in that moment, we don't have that, and that's kind of what I've just been hearing honestly for years of like, why don't we have this, why don't we have that? And
Yeah.
often it comes down to that physical space that can just serve a lot of different purposes.
Yeah. And so identifying that there's this need, right, for a third space, right, that you all can supply and be, and meeting that need and demand. And and I think, you talk about surrounding counties. Anybody who is from a smaller community or a rural community knows that what defines that community is not always necessarily the county line or the or the town line, right? There is this wider ecosystem around you all too, and I wouldn't even be surprised, right? Too, you probably are also drawing folks from over the West Virginia line too, right? Because you guys are right there on West Virginia in the West Virginia line, correct?
Yeah,
Definitely.
Yeah, yeah.
for
So
sure.
it's really this is really exciting. So I want to talk a little bit about this third dimension that SMU Data Arts identifies, which is is government support as well as support from the public. And what has been very clear is you all met the threshold for what they thought was important, and we don't see the level of support in a lot of rural communities that we're seeing in Bath. I want to start with the public support. What does that look like for you guys on the government level? What is moving through and supporting the work that you do?
Sage, do you want to talk about that?
I don't know nearly as much about that, I don't think.
Well, I would say, Jeff, that we are just kind of just really at the tip of the iceberg on that. I tell you, we are obviously a volunteer board and we are time starved and we are also a very hardworking board. But we haven't really had the talent or the resources to pursue a lot of public funding. And I think that is going to really change with the hiring of
Ah,
this grant writer.
mhm.
And she's semi-local too. Actually, she grew up in Highland County, our neighbor. And so she has a lot of experience with that and Virginia funding. But I think there are just so many foundations and other resources that we haven't even begun to, knock on their door yet. And
Yeah.
I think this is a pretty exciting time for us on that platform as well.
I can speak a little bit to this is kind of a little bit beyond the scope of Bath County Arts Association, but the local radio station in Bath is Allegheny Mountain Radio. It's part of a network that includes Highland County, Virginia, and Pocahontas County, West Virginia. And they, as an institution, receive up until very recently, received lots of federal support for all of their programming, and we've worked with them significantly to fund their projects, and so as like they're definitely a member of the entire arts field in Bath, and they've received a lot of support.
Yeah, and I think we can speak frankly about this. I think, when we think of the ecosystem that exists in Bath, there's clearly collective action that makes this possible, and that means that the both financial and human resources that make it go come from multiple sectors. And as we know, many public radio and television stations have lost federal funding recently. And I do think it's okay for us to say, hey, this could have a negative impact on an arts vibrant community, right? That these radio stations that serve as outlets for artists, means of information sharing about events, activities, things are going on. This has an impact, and this particular interview is a collaboration with the Virginians for the Arts, and which is an advocacy organization for public funding. So I state we may need to circle back later and sort of find out the impact here, but we really do need to be working as hard as we can to make sure that public officials, both on the federal, state, and local level, understand the value of what is being provided. And as you all provide a third space like this, and obviously for decades have been making massive economic impact and impact the quality of life of Bath County, that needs to be supported. It has public value, and it's really important that that's happening. And so the Virginia Commission for the Arts, we're trying really hard to get to a $1 per capita spend that per person in the state of Virginia. We're not there, but we want to get there, and it's particularly important for rural communities like Bath, right? That the state is stepping up and doing as much as it possibly can to offset anything that's lost on the federal level. I will say too, just as in regards to national foundations, there is going to be opportunities for rural communities out ahead. People have concerns about what resources exist in rural communities, and private foundations are stepping into the fold. So I do think there's definitely opportunity there out ahead. But tell me a little bit about the philanthropic nature of Bath County, because it seems as an outsider that there is support that exists for the arts in that community. And we need it from the private sector too. So what is that looking like?
Well, we wouldn't exist without our membership donations. And frankly, we had some early adopters in the form of local businesses and semi-local businesses, and then just other interested individuals, I guess, that helped us with sponsorships for the art show, and have really come together. We've had a pretty amazing little foray into fundraising, our first real fundraising for what we consider significant money, just trying to get the bear off the ground. and launched. And it's just been, frankly, so overwhelmingly wonderful and
Oh, that's awesome.
heartfelt.
Yeah.
Really, I mean, once we start telling the story, people are, I think they're just moved by the idea that they really can see their dollars go to work and make a difference. And I know that sounds like a cliche, but in Bath County, it really is true. I mean, we're kind of a, a semi-isolated county, and we're sort of can be a little insular. So being able to bring all kinds of different art-related activities and events is just really it's something that's so needed and so appreciated. Um, there's what we were just talking about, I think, Sage, talking about the social factor. I think that people are desperate to come together
Yeah.
and just have this social connection, because people live kind of far apart and over the mountains, and it's wonderful for them to be able to have kind of a uniting purpose and a
Yeah.
uniting place to go that's safe and fun.
One of the things I love about that point you make is very often when the conversation happens in 2025 about people needing to come, feeling a need to come together, it's because of digital barriers or right that are sort of happening to us. But it
Whatever.
is interesting to think about right in a rural location, right? Your neighbors are could be miles away, and you need this just also because of the physical world to like have a place to come together, how the arts can serve as that. That's a really great, I'm actually going to hold on to that because that's a really, really great point. And Sage, were you
Yeah.
going to say add something?
Yeah, I was just going to, I think what differentiates a rural area from even small cities in terms of when you look at the importance of organizations like this, in larger areas, if a singular arts entity, whether it's private or whether it's a nonprofit or for-profit entity, if it goes away, often, and it might take some time, but that space will be filled, and that speed is
Yep.
even faster in a city. Like
Yep.
things are competing, and that competition is good, and that competition means there's a vibrant scene. If you are in Richmond and you can say, what should I do tonight? I can go to 15 different things,
Yeah.
all starting at the same time. That's the marker of health in that situation. But in a rural area, we're talking about like institutions that are singular in their purpose, compared to everything else that's going on. And, I hope that we get to the point where people have to decide what they're doing on a Friday night, and have to pick and choose. But really, right now, I think what we're hoping is just to have something that people can say, yeah, there's something going on this
Yep.
weekend, and we know where to go. And if I'm not interested, maybe I'll look into it next weekend. But that there's really something. And when we talk about the need for funding and stuff like that, I really think it comes down to, this isn't just auxiliary programming. This is really true to the community
Yeah.
programming that needs to happen. And it's just kind of taken for granted in a lot of larger spaces.
Yeah, so that's a really great point. I think in these smaller communities, we do need to look at the arts much like we look at these other amenities that if it's not supplied by you all, right? Or just like if we don't have the fire department, right, that supplies the firefighters, right, then we're not going to put out the fires, right? If we don't have Bath County Arts Association, right, to deliver the arts, then we're not we're not going to have that, right? And so I think when we're looking at the local level, the state level, that participation is really important. The other thing I'll just make a shout out, to really what's incredible about your local philanthropic community stepping up is that, it means that I think very often, public funding can be looked at, I think, in an ill-informed way as like, completely supplying something or the taxpayer is paying for everything. And that's not the case, right? It helps offset, right? It is a participation in a larger series of funding mechanisms. And the Bath County community stepped up, right? And the public funding then becomes a part of creating constant stability when that ebbs and flows based on different things happening in the environment at any point, whether it be the economy or anything else, or an event, right, that you can't even foresee, right, that may
Right.
happen, and that public funding become a backstop. So I think it's a really important thing. And the other thing I think I kind of want to wrap a little bit on is also you will also and Sage, you're a beneficiary of this. You give away money too. And so this is a really important element of what you do. And so the funding is really critical. So there's opportunity for people. So I think tell me a little bit more about the scholarships and grants that you all deliver, because I think it's really critical, particularly for a small community like Bath.
Well,
I can talk about my personal, but then
That'd be
you can
great.
come in
I'd
with
love
the
a personal
official stuff.
story.
So I've experienced like Bath County Arts Association funding in all sorts of ways, both as a child participant in programs like Missoula Children's Theater that I was a participant in the first year that they had it in Bath, and all through the years that I was able to participate, it was a huge focus. That was my first exposure to theater. I went on to study drama and dance at UVA, and received a scholarship from Bath County Arts Association to make buying books and supplies an easier process for me in my college years. And then as a creative who came back and was living in Bath, and actually I think also not living in Bath but providing programming in Bath, I received a lot of grant funding to teach dance classes as well as run after school radio drama programming.
Oh, fun.
So I've gotten to see kind of all sides of what the Arts Association can provide to community members. And it's a lot, that those things wouldn't have ever happened, and when it comes, the reason I taught dance classes or did after school theater stuff, we weren't doing that. No one else was doing that. So, and really anyone in the community who has that ability and is thinking of what programming needs to be done has the opportunity to apply for funding through the Bath County Arts Association and make those things happen.
I love that investment too, the Bath County Arts Association made in you, also in many ways brought you back. And I think we think about small communities and we think about, young people, and we think about, continued growth and trying to keep a brain drain from happening, right? I mean, and creatives make a community a place worth living. So to invest in you and then for you to come back is like a fantastic story. So
Yeah, it's very full circle in my own, personal life, but I think
yeah,
it really is a good use case of how this can be really impactful. And I agree that like creativity is what makes living in a place really great. And as people are able to work remotely more and more, that becomes such an important conversation about like, well, what makes people actually move to a place if they don't have to be there for work? Why are they going
yeah,
to stay there?
yeah, yeah. And you all are making that a place that people want to be and stay, and that's huge. It's absolutely huge. Um, well, this has been an absolute pleasure. I think just as a final note, uh, where would you like to see um, well, I mean, in many ways you told me where you want to see things. Um, where would you like to see Bath County on the whole in 5 years? I mean, there's you all, right? There's the bear, there's the show, there's all the rest of it, but where do you want to see the county? Where do you want to see it be? What do you want it to be?
Just incredibly engaged and vibrant. I remember when Lewisburg, kind of
Mm,
town
Oh, I know Lewisburg. Yeah.
Neighbor town over the
Yep.
mountains.
Who also has a large resort
Yes.
next to it. Yep.
So I remember when they were named like one of the coolest small towns in America or something
Mhm.
like that 15 years ago. And I was like so jealous. I thought, oh, how can we make that happen over here? And gosh, I would love to be able to come down the street and just to see this explosion of people kind of coming in and out of the bear and doing just all kinds of things and having our whole main street kind of it is sort of on the cusp of revitalizing now, but just to see it just really thriving and having just the diversity of so many people who are um, just having fun and experiencing all kinds of things that are related to art and kind of just, I don't know, blowing their mind, really. I
Yeah.
can't wait.
I love that. I love that.
Yeah, I agree with all of that. And I also hope that the people who live here, when they have ideas about what they want to see in their community, I hope 5 years down the line that everyone has that idea and it's immediately partnered with, oh, I know who to talk to about that. Or I think I should mention this to so and they'll be able to get this kind of started. Because I think what I hear a lot of is I hear a lot of great ideas, but people are either working too much or they just don't feel like they know where the connections are and where the networks can happen.
Yeah.
And so that's my hope, is that the bear can be like a fundamental part of making some of that community network happen.
Yeah, and that's the great thing about a small town is locations like that can be the thing, right? Where people come together and networking is the whole thing. Well, I just want to thank you all for all you do for obviously Bath County, but also the state of Virginia. We're just really proud to have you all on that SMU Data Arts list as an arts vibrant community, and it's thanks to organizations like Bath County Arts Association and the work you all are doing. So it's a really big deal, and really. Uh, you know, happy to celebrate what you're doing. And I've got to come out. I've got to come back out.
Yeah.
I always go, my family, my wife's family, is in Columbus, so we're always driving, through and up and into West Virginia and through Hot
Okay,
Springs.
well,
And so I got
you
to do
can't
it.
keep
I got to
going.
do it.
You got
I
to
got to do
stop.
it. And we have one of our favorite donors has a home in Bath County, which also I'll share really quickly.
Mhm.
This is and we'll talk offline after this.
Yeah.
But one of the things that she always tells us is that she just loves the beauty of that place, and she always mentions the culture. She always mentions the culture that is happening there, and it makes it a place that her and her wife want to spend a regular amount of time in. And so it's clearly the word is out. The word is out. Well,
Great.
Lee, Sage, thank you so
You.
much. I really, really have appreciated this conversation, and I look forward to visiting you all soon.
Me too.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jeff.
Thank you. So I'm really excited as we continue to take an in-depth look at Bath County, which is one of the most arts vibrant rural communities in the United States, according to SMU Data Arts, and it is in my home state of Virginia. And we had a fantastic conversation with the Bath County Arts Association about their work and Bath County. And the other thing that Bath County has, which is really an incredible jewel and really an amazing place, is the Garth Newell Music Center. And so I'm really excited to speak with Jeanette Fang, who is an artist, an artistic director, accomplished pianist at the Garth Newell Center, to talk a little bit about Bath County, what makes it special, what makes the Garth Newell Music Center special. Jeanette, thank you so much for spending some time talking to me today.
Thank you for having me.
So, the SMU's data arts study found that, Bath County kind of hits these three marks. There is a high supply of the arts, and this is happening both in the visual arts in regards to galleries and art shows, And then there's this incredible performing arts tradition with the Garth Newell Music Center. And then in turn, another metric that you all hit in Bath County is demand for the arts. So people respond to that. There's people attending arts events, spending money on the art. And then there is support that is coming both from the public and private sector to make that possible. And when those three things kind of happen, and they happen at a per capita high volume, then the SMU Data Arts says, oh, this is an arts vibrant community.
Okay.
You all, Bath County, and I mentioned this in the previous interview, is just an absolutely beautiful place. Hot Springs is at a homestead is there. It has tourism. And I think of it very often of fitting into this category of community I call the enclave. And you are an artist who has made your home, a Juilliard trained artist who's made their home in rural 4,500 population
Yeah.
Bath County. So tell me a little bit about that. I have a quote from a story. You said, I don't like a lot of hustle and bustle. In New York, I constantly got distracted. So tell me a little bit about why you're in Bath County and what makes Bath County so great.
Well, the word I like to use for Bath County is unsullied
Oh, I
because
love that.
there's not a single fast food restaurant here. There's not a single traffic light. It's just, it feels very pure. And I think there's something to be said about making music in a place of natural beauty. There's just the harmony in nature and the harmony in music, and you just feel like you get to a deeper place and that you can communicate better. And that's how I've always felt, that you can really experience the truth of music and the sharing of music best in a place that doesn't have a lot of technology or a lot of
Yeah.
crowds and a lot of distraction, meaning things to do that are just in the way, scheduling conflicts and people always rushing. And I think when you come to Garth Newell, which is like coming to Bath County and any of the areas here, you feel like you can actually get to know people and you're not in a hurry to get somewhere else. I mean, everyone's busy and they're busy everywhere, but it's just less there in the forefront. So,
Yeah.
I mean, for me, that was really, really special because, I went to school in New York, as you mentioned, and then I was mostly, East Coast upper baby, never really went this far south. And I never really got working, I felt. But I feel like here I can really just kind of plant my roots and happily work. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. I used to run a summer theater festival in a rural area, and one of the things for the actors and designers that they always loved was being able to come and just focus on the work, having this place that the work became central,
Exactly.
and to escape as you said, the hustle and bustle, just escape and come, and it's such a beautiful area of the country. And I've got to imagine too, it has to inspire the work as
Exactly. It
well.
totally does. It never gets old.
And I know from your work, you like to play a lot of original composed new work, correct? And is that tell me a little bit, at Garth Newell, is some of that composition happening on site?
Yes, actually, so we have a composition competition, but we occasionally will commission pieces for piano quartet as well. And the last big piano quartet that we commissioned, the composer actually came and composed in all the four different seasons at Garth Newell because one of the great things about Virginia is that there's four distinct seasons versus
Yeah.
yeah, and it's great because they're perfect seasons. They're not like, it's not too hot and it's not. Also, this summer is pretty roasting.
Yeah, I
But
was about to say, I don't know about the summer, but yes, the fall and the spring are lovely.
yeah, fall is the most beautiful time.
Yeah.
And actually we capitalized on that by having a fall foliage festival because
Mm,
the changing leaves, I think, is an occasion for everyone to come out. But
yeah.
speaking of the composition that was done, we asked him to write a piece that was based on the four seasons at Garth Newell specifically, because we were sort of doing a four seasons theme. Four seasons have inspired composers for ages, but
Mm,
we wanted one specific to here. to this climate, to this specific location. So
Yeah, I
yeah.
love that. Well, I mean, along that line, how would you further describe the role that Garth Newell plays in the cultural and in many ways the economic life of Bath County, right? I mean, you all are integrated for quite a long time.
Mhm.
And so there is the work being responsive to the environment, but you all are obviously probably informing that environment and that community as well. How does that manifest?
Well, it's interesting because it is a tourist economy. So the homestead brings a lot of people in,
Hmm.
but we do have a lot of people who are regulars. And so it's sort of a place where people go to celebrate their anniversary or they'll come to do every year sort of tradition. So I think a healthy mix of locals, regulars, and then we'll try to encourage visitors by collaboration with various bed and breakfasts around the area. There's quite a lot of them around the area. I mean, and I think that's the main driving factor is tourism. And
Yeah.
we're providing a need, I think, in a really underserved area. I mean, classical music here. I think we are the only all year presenting organization in Virginia, versus, a festival in the summer or a festival
Hmm.
in the spring. We try to do it all year round and we provide education as well. So,
Let's talk a little bit about that education because I think one of the components, one of the factors that I found in the successful rural, and it's also true in the small city rural arts vibrancy communities too, is that there is very often or can be some sort of tourism element where they're like Nantucket was made the list, right? Of
yeah, yeah,
top small rural
absolutely.
communities.
Yeah.
And it makes a lot of sense. But one of the things that I discovered when I was looking at Nantucket is that the organizations also, though, are very committed to serving the residential the residents too, the folks who actually live there that are not transitory. So tell me, and I know that some of this manifests in education outreach and the work that you all do. So tell me a little bit about that and how that looks.
Sure. Well, I will say we're in the middle of our fellowship program, which is sort of the flagship program that started Garth Newell. So it's a summer intensive for um, serious music students who want to do chamber music and go on with music in their lives. So that's sort of Garth Newell was a place that the founding members thought would be ideal to have a summer festival. For students specifically. And they were coming from Duke University, they were coming from those, from North Carolina. And we also, that's specific to the summer, but it also targets a very specific type of student, which is a serious music student. But what we do provide is a comprehensive K through 12 string education, which doesn't actually exist in the schools of our surrounding counties and of Bath County. So they have a great band program, but they don't have a comprehensive string program. And so we're trying to serve that need. And there are kids who come to the Allegheny Mountain String Project, that's what it's called,
Yeah.
from a pretty large radius. I mean, they'll be coming from like West Virginia to 2 hours away. It's very dispersed, our communities here. So
Yeah.
travel is a big factor.
Well, we often when I have conversations with rural artists and rural arts deliverers is that, it is we can say Bath County, right? But at the end of the day,
Yeah.
these rural communities are really complex. They're micropolitan areas, sometimes the way it's referred to, right? Is that the ecosystem around it? I mean, you all have bordering counties that are going to culturally identify with you all and the work that you're doing. And what's great too about all of this, people coming from all over for these programs is the profound economic impact that I am sure you all are having on Bath County. I imagine that it's a big component of what drives the economy there in Bath.
Yes. Well, I mean, one of the interesting things is that there is a pretty big disparity in income. So you have,
I
uh,
imagine.
yeah, because a lot of our patrons, they come and this is their second home, but it's not their
Yeah.
permanent. But then the locals who are here, I mean, the average median income is pretty low. I think lower than the national average, right?
Hmm.
And so you want to not alienate any group. And so for example, the AMSP program is highly discounted. It's pretty much um, people don't have to pay very much for string education just simply because it's a need. It's not something that like they have a lot of choice in. But when we do concert tickets, we are catering to a certain type of audience, and we always want to open up the audience to include people, more locals, more people who
Yeah.
don't actually like regularly go to classical concerts. That's the hugest factor in keeping us going is actually like a widespread interest and not just a very select one. So it's just it's hard to say. I mean, I know that we provide something that does boost the economy in terms of there's something to do, there's culture and there's a place to go to listen to music, but also to gather and make friends and also have a really good meal, which is something that came out of the fact that in Bath County, everything closes at a certain time. So when I mean it's different now, it's better now, but when in 1973 when it was started, there'd be a concert and then people didn't have a place to go
Like,
to
where
eat.
do we go? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So we were lucky that the founding member, one of them was a really good chef. She was Italian and she just cooked really well. So she would just cook for the audience, and it was small enough that she could do that and still play a concert. And it was,
Oh, I love
yeah,
that. Well, and probably there's options now because of you all, I'm sure. It has to be, right? I
I mean,
mean,
who knows what's the cause? And I mean, it's just,
yeah, it was chicken or the egg, right? But
right,
yeah,
right. It's
yeah.
just good to see the growth of things. Like I know people are trying here to make a more vibrant community for younger people.
Mhm.
So like there are some entrepreneurs who are really trying to prove that, the younger people can do something, and they're starting businesses here, like Simply Flawless. And then there's a Bacova Brewing Company, which is definitely trying to make some sort of after hours life happen,
Yeah, yeah.
which is, yeah, so that Bath County doesn't feel so for the retired set. That's
Yeah, and well, it probably helps you all too with your
absolutely,
artists, right? The artists have
yeah,
places to go and things to do, and
exactly, yeah.
yeah, yeah. So I know a component of your work when we think about statewide impact and even beyond that, but um, you know, part of the model is you have performances that take place there on site at the center. But you also tour,
Mhm.
correct? And so that's another component of what you all do is you move out and provide your work to a wider community. So tell me a little bit about how that works and how Bath is home base, right? But then the work is shared beyond.
Yes, absolutely. And this is something that we're really grateful for VCA because they provide a touring directory,
Ah,
uh,
yep.
which is a service that we use as presenters. I definitely book artists from there all the time, but as well, we are on there, so we can go to communities that may not be able to afford our full fee, but they can have the assistance of VCA. And it also is a way for them to discover good groups because the
Yep.
VCA vets the groups pretty well. The application process is pretty thorough. And I have a lot of respect for that organization. I mean, and
Yeah, the Virginia and for us, so my organization, the Academy Center of the Arts here in Lynchburg, we host a lot of national touring, and so the Virginia Commission for the Arts artist roster, often we will turn to and look at when we're trying to find options where we can support local artists or at least state local artists, and bring them in, and it really it becomes less of a commercial endeavor and more of a cultural impact endeavor. And so I'm really thankful for that. And for you all, I would imagine too, it's a really helpful, the touring component has got to be a helpful component too for your business model. I mean, probably helps
yeah,
sustain the organization, right? To be able to go out and generate revenue beyond Bath County of 4,500 people, right? I mean, it's a
absolutely. Yeah.
And that's what's cool about Bath County, right? Is that you have your core residents, you have this tourism industry of people coming in, and then you can expand your audience even more by going out. And so it's a really smart. I think anybody in a smaller rural community kind of looking for, well, how can you make that work? How can that enclave work? That kind of three-pronged system seems really smart. Well, there's the touring component. I mean, I'm curious too how how public funding, Virginia Commission for the Arts. There may be, obviously we're dealing with a lot of stress and strain on the NEA right now. I'm not sure, and you can tell me, I'm not sure if there's local arts funding that you all receive from the local government there in Bath County, but how is that VCA funding and government's funding supported the mission on the whole?
DCA has always supported us. They are very, very, we have a pretty close relationship with them. I think that they have very, very much always supported our needs. And in turn, we happily will do anything for them. And in terms of larger government funding, for a while, VCA was sort of it for us, and we would do smaller organizations like Bath County Arts. They are great for funding education. They often sponsor a fellow for us, and that's because all the fellows attend for free. So that's another thing that.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
fantastic.
yeah. And I mean, it's mostly we're trying to get away from a lot of private funding because that's mostly been what Garth Newell has been based on, is just private donations. And we're trying to have something that is sustainable and have various government organizations. And you're absolutely right. It is an anxious time for all of us right now. So
Yeah. Were you all impacted by NEA cuts at all?
we so far lucky.
Okay,
Yeah.
great. That
Yeah.
makes me happy to hear. It's always back and forth. And I will, for those who may or may not know, the NEA supplies about 30% of the state funding here in Virginia that runs through the Virginia Commission for the Arts. And good news is that component of NEA funding is intact. Is being delivered to the state. And so those of us who receive Virginia Commission for the Arts funding, we're in a good place. But do all the advocacy you can on the national level right
Absolutely.
now, because it's really serious. And I will say, you mentioned, trying to navigate, funding beyond the private sector, and it is really important because, and I would say that, in a moment where we're seeing the fragility of public funding, all funding is fragile to some degree, right? Based on all kinds of factors. And diversity
Yeah.
of funding is like a critical component of health
Absolutely.
in
Yes.
any sector, right? So if we take any of this away, right, it's a Jenga set. And so I think with that, I would sort of say, what would the loss of Virginia Commission for the Arts money, what would we lose from Garth Newell if that happened? I mean,
A lot.
yeah,
We lose a lot. I mean, you mentioned touring, and that is our best marketing tool. But not only are we talking just money, I mean, in terms of VCA support, they often involve us in various projects. They often they have various things to showcase their organizations, and just the very tool of the directory is something that, probably 75 to 80% of the people who book us they found us there.
wow, yeah,
I mean, it's huge because
yeah.
if we can drive there, that's much more feasible to do than doing an international tour. That's always a nightmare. So
Much better when it's in state.
absolutely, yes.
Yeah, yeah.
But I mean, it's also interesting to me after having kind of served on some of these panels that they have, is to learn that there are so many communities in sort of Southwest Virginia that are so in need.
Yeah.
And it's just VCA is really trying to help that. And I think that they could be the sole resource for a lot of these smaller organizations. And I think without VCA, I think Virginia would be much heavily impacted, wouldn't you say? I mean,
Yeah, absolutely. And the touring component, one of the initiatives that the Virginia Commission for the Arts had last year was they were trying to make sure that Virginia Commission dollars were reaching every jurisdiction in the state. I think they got pretty close. I think that, there's a
yeah,
lot of counties and cities in the state. There were a couple they weren't able to get to, but I do think that touring dollars were a big part of that because, as well as the collaborative grants that they offer with local government.
and the community impact grants, those are great.
Yeah, community impact grant. And so that has made a profound impact in a lot of communities where access to, high quality arts activity is really hard to come by.
Exactly.
And can be really life-changing and profound for the participants involved. Um, so I think I'd be curious, too, I think we're talking about small communities and a little bit about policy. I what do you wish more people who are formulating, urban policy or state government understood about rural ecosystems? Like, what do you wish? Because a lot of this, right, a lot of decisions about, funding, approaches to the arts, what's important to kind of understand, good and bad, about what a rural ecosystem looks like?
I mean, one of the things that, and I don't know if this exactly answers your question, but the thing that always frustrates me in terms of what is officially stated about arts is that a lot of people don't seem to understand that it comes from education and exposure. It comes from very, very young age. And I think
Mhm.
that there's sometimes the thought that if there's no desire for a certain type of music, then we shouldn't do that type of music. Like, and it doesn't come from there. It comes much younger. And I think that to cut music education or arts education in schools is so short-sighted. And it's so important for kids to, even if they're not going to do that for their life, to have that experience,
Yeah.
have the inspiration, or to have like very important performing opportunities, things that actually make people develop all sorts of skills that are really important in life. I mean, I think music's benefit is not just music itself, but it's also interpersonal skills. It's also teamwork. It's so many things that are important to appreciate. So
Yeah, I think about just on a personal note, we're really lucky here in Lynchburg. We have this program here. It's called City Strings,
mhm.
and it is a free Suzuki-based violin program, and it was founded by a woman who's been doing it for 50 years.
Wow.
She's still running it. There's a number of teachers. But my son took part in it, so he started playing the violin in kindergarten, and I know brain development and complexity, his hand-eye coordination.
Absolutely.
I mean,
Yeah.
I know it had a profound effect, and I even if he doesn't, go on to play the violin in adulthood, I the impact it's had on him, I know, I can see it. And it's also just really amazing to see him do things I
Exactly.
can't do. I mean, he plays, he can play things by ear,
Oh,
and it's really and it's just exposure. He was exposed to it at kindergarten. It was an opportunity was given. Um, you know, that's a really great point about, well, they in the rural communities, they're not interested in this. They don't want this. It's really about opportunity and exposure. And if they have it, it completely changes the game. And I
yeah.
know, my son has a deep appreciation for the violin because he was exposed to it.
Exactly. And he probably has great problem-solving skills and like
100%, 100%.
one of the things that was really interesting for me, just over the pandemic, we did a lot of videos and I sort of did a lot of stuff on our YouTube channel. But one of the things that was interesting for me to discover was that the age range of 18 to 28 jumped. That viewership jumped. And I was just thinking, you know, I wouldn't have thought that because our average, audience members got white hair and um,
Yeah.
but it actually makes me think that people are interested. that young people are interested in music and they're looking it up. They just don't actually drive to the concerts because they're young, like they don't that
they get themselves
ability. Yeah. But it's like, and I remember when I was in school doing you go to the inner city and work with some of the kids on occasion when there's that opportunity. And I mean, for me, piano is so interesting to little kids because one, it's really easy to make a sound. You just kind of bang and you're like, oh my God, I'm making a sound. It's just, I think kids are drawn to that. And I saw no reluctance at all. I saw like an eagerness and a curiosity. So I think that this is something that people tell themselves that this is, boring music or something that's not for them. But you don't have to be like particularly smart to enjoy classical music at all. You just have to like music and like expressing and sharing. So
yeah. And I think, one last question I want to kind of ask, which kind of brings us back around to the enclave idea. One of the things that there's the music impact, which we've discussed, which is evident and clear. There's also kind of one of the things I found when we were doing the Summer Theater Festival in a rural community was there was a cultural exchange that was happening between the local residents and the artists that very often may be coming from a larger urban area or coming from outside, that was organically happening outside the context of the actual concert or performance in our case, but was happening in like running into people at the brewery, right?
Or grocery store all the time.
Grocery store, right? Or whatever else. I mean, and it really enriches a community to have that exchange. Talk to me a little bit about that and how that manifests there in Bath.
Absolutely. I mean, I think that I would not be here if it were not for Garth Newell. And I think there are several locals around that said they wouldn't have stayed if it weren't for Garth Newell. So it's interesting that we have a unique relationship with people here because we're resident ensemble. So we actually get to know people on a pretty intimate level.
Yeah.
They come back to concerts and we develop these friendships. We get to really feel like we're growing with people, and they've grown and seen us grow. I mean, I've been here 10 years and I definitely have heard how much I've improved in my talking, that sort of thing. It's great. It's great. Like, and I think that really does take it to a different place, in a large concert hall, you never get to talk to the audience.
Yeah.
Never get to. Yeah. And here we eat dinner with them and we like often now hang out with some of them. It's just, I think that really benefits both of us in a much more, I think, advanced and progressive way. So
yeah, and in a time when we are so separated across an urban-rural divide, it gives you a little hope,
I think so. Yeah. And I mean, it's also like, there's not that much diversity in this community, and so this is, I think, a chance. We bring in all sorts of artists. It's really a chance for them to experience that exposure, which they may not ever really get if they never leave.
Yeah.
Right. And then that's so important because, I mean, if I never met anyone that was different from me, I'd be very stunted, I feel.
Yeah. And afraid too,
Yeah, exactly.
It really is important that people see people as people, and it happens through earnest, authentic exchange, and that is really possible in a small community. To your point, it's really harder to do in a larger urban environment, and I always loved that. The actors would get like to your point, they would get like recognized in the grocery store, and people want to talk to them, and real relationship. And I still talk to some of the actors this day after years of having to do them. They still ask questions about like how's so-and-so, who lives on the apple farm or whatever, I mean, and we'd be like, oh yeah, they're doing pretty well or whatever, I mean, it is really like, it is really special. And I know that what you all give the residents of Bath County makes their living and life much more dynamic than it would be otherwise. So
well, I mean,
it's you all for that.
Oh, thank you. I mean, it's we get all the benefit as performers, because what's the point of music if we're not sharing and knowing that we've shared something and somebody's really benefited from it. So it's two-way. Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, Jenna, thank you so much for this, and thank you for sharing what makes Garth Newell Music Center so special, and what makes Bath County really special, and sharing your story.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure to talk.
Mine as well. Mine as well. Thank you so much for joining us for this episode of Small Town Big Arts. Remember to rate and review us and share with your friends. To learn more, visit us at smalltownbigarts.com. Until next time, I'm your host, Jeffrey Kirshner.